So welcome, everybody. Welcome to today's Transition Maine Power Hour. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Or as we like to say, another opportunity to supercharge our transition planning skills without needing to write a 20-page transition plan first, though. So let's be real, some days it really feels that way. The heavy workload that we need to launch in supporting that transition plan as well as our teaching workload. So I thank you for the time spent in developing these skills as well as sustaining these skills. Today, we are thrilled to welcome the Woodford's adult case management team will guide us through the services and supports available through the DHHS Section 21 and 29 waiver program. If you have ever found yourself staring at that maze of adult services, I have, wondering if you need a secret decoder ring, this session is for you. So the Woodford's Adult Case Management Program is all about connecting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and their families to the right resources. But more so, it's a roadmap that their work empowers individuals to uncover their interests, their strengths, and their vision for their ideal lives, right? Crafting their personal plans and that help them achieve those meaningful post-secondary goals. So, how does this connect to the IEP transition plan? Well, I think the way I'd really want us to view the transition planning is like setting GPS directions for life after high school. Today's session will give us the valuable insight into how case managers help their students and families navigate these adult services and ensuring a smoother transition and stronger post-secondary outcomes. Plus, this is a great opportunity for our transition champions to deepen their understanding of how case management can complement and enhance the transition planning process. So I would love to welcome Rebecca LaChance. She's the Director of Community Case Management at Woodford's Family Services. Rebecca has extensive experience helping individuals with disabilities access vital resources and support. She is passionate about guiding families through the often complex world of adult case management and ensuring that individuals have tools, connections, and services they need for a successful and fulfilling post-secondary life. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for joining us today, as well as Vicky in supporting today's Power Hour presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Titus. It's nice to meet you guys. I see a few familiar faces from last week. I'm not sure. I think there's a few new people, but last week we were here and we talked with Whitney Brown, who also joined us. She's our transition case manager working with children. Whitney talked a lot about how she works with families around transitioning them from children's services into ODES and what that process is like for her. She shared her presentation that she does with parents. And so today we're focusing on adult case management. So once an individual has been deemed eligible for adult services at ODES, and they have an adult case manager. So I've brought Vicky Shaw with me today. Vicky's the assistant director, and she has been in the Woodford's adult case management program for, gosh, Vicky, 27 years.
Yeah.
So she is our go-to person when it comes to adult case management. So I'm gonna turn it over to her.
Okay, so when I started, I was a children's case manager and I attended so many IEP meetings and I sat on a transition council and I've read a lot of transition plans and helped a lot of students transition from, teenage years to adult years. So I still have a lot of those students on my adult caseload now, or they have services in our department now. And many of them are thriving in their adult lives. Some are living in group homes, some are still living with their families, some may be living in their own apartments. And it really kind of runs the gamut as far as depending on their diagnosis, their level of functioning. As you know, when they come into adult services, they're coming into their eligibility with their psychological evaluation. And for our services, they're having either autism or an intellectual disability. They may have a comorbid mental health diagnosis. That is not what deems them eligible for services with Office of Aging and Disability Services. When they come into services with us, the first thing that we do within the first 30 days is we write a comprehensive assessment. That assessment, we are gathering information from maybe the IEP, from medical records, social history, from the parents, strengths, needs, assessments, hopes, wishes, dreams. You know, what are their goals? What do they want to work on? At that age, 18, they're all basically, most of them still living at home. We do have a lot of kids at age 18 that unfortunately, maybe we are getting them when maybe they've been at Spring Harbor, unfortunately, or maybe they've been in a residential setting. Maybe it's Spurwink or some out-of-district placements. I don't know where all of you are working. But, you know, some have been really difficult students to place and difficult students with challenging behaviors. So with that being said, it may look different. If they have very challenging behaviors, they may be in need of a Section 21 waiver. So do you all know what a Section 21 waiver is? Okay.
I will say Whitney did touch upon it last week, but I think another explanation is always helpful.
Okay.
Can we get a few thumbs up of individuals that think that they understand these waiver services, just so that we can see overall who
Okay.
has an understanding of waiver services, even an inch into it.
I just want to say that I'm familiar with Section 21 and 29 waivers, but in my understanding of them, I've kind of grouped them together. So I think an explanation of the differences between the two might be beneficial to me. I'm not sure if anybody else in the group.
Okay, I can make it very simple.
Mhm.
There's one thing in Section 21 that is not in Section 29. And this is the easiest way to remember it. If you need to go live in a group home and you need staffing around the clock, that is Section 21. And that is the simplest way to remember it. So if you have families who have a child at home who has been aggressive, out of control, behavioral, impulse control, whatever, difficult to manage on psychotropic medications, and, you know, difficult to manage. And they need to live in a group home, that's going to be Section 21. And that is not easy to get. There are three priority levels in Section 21. Priority 1 is for abuse, neglect, and exploitation. That is how you get that, is by having priority 1. If we have a client that needs that level of care, we start building that case immediately by involving, we have a crisis team through developmental services. And I would like to talk about that briefly because there's really no reason why you couldn't start talking to families at 17 and a half about what the developmental services crisis team is. They're very helpful. They're available 24/7. They work with local sheriffs, local police departments, case management agencies, and they help us start building a case and documenting what that need is for Section 21. So, you know, you're going to call that 774 help number, or many of you know that crisis number, that statewide crisis number gets rerouted instead of the mental health line. It gets rerouted to a DS crisis line. Exactly. Thank you, Titus. So some people call it, you know, I've heard families call it the golden ticket, right? The golden ticket. But Section 21, I'm not going to continue to talk about that too much. I'd like to talk about Section 29 because that is the waiver that most families you're going to see get Section 29. What 29 covers that also 21 covers is the most beneficial service that you see a lot of families get right out of high school is something called shared living. And shared living is when a family member can become the home support provider. That home support provider can be contracted as a direct support professional. They enroll in what's called the College of Direct Support through an agency. So the case manager helps the families find all these services, right? They go on a waiting list. They have a person-centered plan. They come up with goals. They go on a waiting list. And within about 6 months, they can easily get a Section 29 because that's by date of application.
We have one question in the chat. What
Okay.
waiver would a student with TBI qualify for?
TBI might be under, there is a brain injury waiver. So under ODE services, we do not manage the traumatic brain injury waiver. Goodwill does.
Yes.
And that's a very important service. And many people really need that service. Neuro rehab, there's another big company in Maine that has a lot of group homes in southern Maine. Neuro restorative, I believe they're called.
Okay. I will bring more information around TBI and the waivers around that. I will bring Goodwill to this platform. Sarah, good question, and I will make sure that we have an expert that understands and the supports around TBI. All right, I think I'll bring
Great,
the
thank you.
organization. The
Very
organization that
important.
supports TBI, but there's also TBI nonprofits organizations as well and community supports. And so I'll invite all of them to the platform and then we can have a discussion on that.
Yeah.
All right, more in depth.
So under the Section 29 waiver, other services that are included, a newer service that is under that waiver now is called self-direction. And self-direction is a newer service where family members or the client themselves can self-direct the money in the waiver, which is $84,000 per year. and pick their service for either home support staff or community supports, which can be out in the community with a staff person taking them out in the community, either 2-to-1 or 1-to-1. And then they take a pocket of money and pay the staff directly out of that pocket of money. I don't want to get in the weeds too much trying to explain that service, but a case manager would assign an agency. There are 2 agencies doing that right now, Palco and GTI. And those agencies are doing a fairly good job. GTI came to the state of Maine first. We're serving about 400 adults, and we probably have about 25 people doing that right now. Another really great service under the Section 29 waiver is assistive technology. Under the waiver, each year, a client could get an assistive technology assessment. That's 8 hours. Those are done by an occupational therapist. There is a wait list, usually 4 months to get it scheduled, but there's a financial cap on assistive technology devices, $6,000 a year. So we have clients who are really benefiting from assistive technology devices. It really helps them to increase, maintain, and improve. That's our Maine Care language, written into our plans. Their independence, their functioning, their ability to communicate, to maintain their social and peer relationships. You know how important social media is, and staying involved with their friends and looking up information is. But communicating, we're getting people tablets and iPhones and computers, and think of your nonverbal autism clients. I have one client with autism. He communicates with 4 iPads, and every quarter I get him, he stims, he has things he chews on. We get him, he rocks. We get him a new chair every quarter that he rocks on, because he really goes through them. So we get him a lot of sensory items that he needs every quarter. So assistive technology devices. Vocationally, work supports. I have a client who works at Market Basket in Biddeford. She gets 6 hours a month of job coaching. She loves working at Market Basket. She's making $15,000 a year. She's thriving. She loves it. She's got a job coach. And lots of our clients are perfectly capable. She's still collecting some Social Security and working.
So Vicky, so her journey, your client's journey. So she had the OCFS services and probably had VR and had that on the work-based learning experiences where she was able to identify the supports needed in the workplace. So when she graduated, she had probably had applied already for eligibility for Section 29. And so when she turned 18, she submitted a Section 29 support waiver, but she also had identified her adaptive needs already. So therefore VR initially in the first 6 months would be able to pay for that and provide that job coach and travel training to support her. Then
Yes.
with the waiver services for Section 29, which
Mhm.
she now has, that she's identified all those services, all
Yes.
the transportation needs. This is where we as case managers come in from the school side. We've been able to help her identify what she needs to live an independent, meaningful life, because we had OCFS at the table, we had VR at the table, we had the adult services case manager come in to do that eligibility form before they turn 18. We want that done by the time that they're 17 and a half. I'm just giving timelines based on the information shared. Yeah, have I missed anything so far, Vicky? Not yet?
No, that's great. And there's
And
even,
then,
yeah,
and there's more in depth. I'm just trying to give the overall picture of the detail that you've given now. So we have those services right before they're 18. We've done that eligibility form. Once they turn 18, they submit their form so that they can get the Section 29 waiver and those support services that was initially identified during her journey to graduation, with the support of OCFS and VR. Then case management comes in, the waiver services kick in, and it's a continuation, not the beginning of, but the continuation of it. Because when there's that stop-start is then when our students face that cliff. Does that make any sense from all the information that was just shared with you? And I
yes.
promise to, I'm going to send you detailed notes on everything that and all the notes that I've put in the chat as well. So we're not just talking about it, but we'll share it in black and white with you as well. I know this is a lot.
Yes, and I saw that question come in. The waiver pays for the job coaching after Voc Rehab closes. There's a long-term work supports form that we get from the Voc Rehab counselor when they close. And the case manager helps find the long-term work supports job coach.
But it's good to have that conversation with that VR counselor at the very beginning before the student leaves, because we know that they are going to need that long-term job coach. So if there's any information that student needs, that is something that we would want to provide, that additional information in the summary of performance. So making sure that that information that they will need for that long form that can inform our VR coach when we're not there, but they have that summary of performance, that's just the connection to make sure that we are supporting them even when we are not there. That's that value, that golden ticket and support when we are not present and our kids are right graduated and on their own, and families. I'm sorry to interrupt, Vicky. I just want my case managers to catch on these nuggets. Go for it.
No, it's very important. And sometimes you may have a student who doesn't get involved with Voc Rehab at all, and then later in life has a waiver, and they can start over again with a service under the waiver called career planning. Let's say they're 25, 26, then they think, oh, maybe I want to work. And before they go back to Voc Rehab, they can start with a service called career planning, where they help identify a path to a career.
Mm-hmm.
And then they do that, and then they go back to Voc Rehab.
Absolutely. We have a great question to follow up on that. So Section 21 waiver picks up after VR. That's very nuanced. Do you want to go for that one, Vicky? The way that they asked the question.
The waiver pays for the coaching after voc rehab closes, yes. But it can be either waiver, whatever waiver they have. So let me see the question.
Most often, families are applying for Section 29 waiver because of the waiting list for Section 21. I think Vicky alluded to the priority eligibility requirements. So that waiver 21 is more difficult and a longer waiting time. And when we say longer, we are not talking about a few months. We are talking about 2-3 years and sometimes longer. I've heard of individuals that is sitting waiting on waiver 21 for many years. So Section 21 is more accessible. I think the wait list that was shared was 3 to 6 months, right? On the Section 21. Sorry, 29 is 6 months, and it's easier to access, but there's only so far that waiver goes, because this is for a student that's more independent. Those services hold a lot of value. For the student that have more significant needs, waiver 21 is going to secure more funding to support those more intense needs, if that makes any sense.
And Michelle, you can have a client can have a job coach for as long as they need one. Just has to be written into the plan every year.
And absolutely as well, Michelle, that a person can access waiver 29, right? Remember, that's what I'm saying. Make sure that by 17 and a half, that eligibility form is submitted to OATS, right? And once you have that eligibility form at 18, they can apply for the waiver 29 and 21 for that matter, if the family deems it's needed, right? And that is it's again, a person-centered plan that the adult case manager will meet with the family to secure what that intense need will be. If for now it's section waiver 29, and then going forward, they apply for 21 because now they know that intense support is required, and they immediately apply for it. Or they can just go for 29, if that's a comprehensive response to that question. Anything that I shared that was a little bit iffy that you guys want me to elaborate on? Too much information, too little information? Thumbs up? Okay. All right, here we go. I apologize, Vicky. I'm just jumping in to extend upon the valuable nuggets you are throwing at us.
Let's collaborate.
There you go.
The other great thing about either waiver is that a lot of our clients go to day programs. So you've probably all heard of like PSL or Strive or Affinity or the Morrison Center or Thatcher Brook or Creative Works or Creative Trails, or there's so many great day programs in the greater Portland, York County, Cumberland County area and I was kind of blown away. When I first started, the schools used to allow the kids to go to the day programs during school hours. They don't do that anymore. They don't allow them to go and bring an aide from the school and have like shadow days their senior year, but they used to allow that. And it was great because you could really practice going to day program. It would be nice if they could start doing that again. It kind of really helped the transition to day program. So I don't know, what can be done to help make that better, but I think if the schools know at least which day programs are in their communities or their greater communities, or which programs are out there, and can talk about the parents, about it with the parents, so the parents can start looking at them. That's helpful. Maybe you already know that. Maybe I'm preaching to the choir.
May I jump in? I have a question about that. So I'm at Lewiston, Androscoggin County, and the day programs in the Lewiston Auburn area have not said no to us coming and visiting. So I'm curious as to, is that just specific programs have that rule, or we've just been
It-
lucky and been
It
able?
was the schools that I was working with last year who said they weren't allowed to do it.
Oh, okay,
So I guess maybe it's different by district.
sure. Well, I currently work for Lewiston, but when I was working for Edward Little and Auburn, that was part of the transition plan is, we couldn't tell the families which programs they should go to, but we were letting families know which programs are available in the community and then encouraging them to go visit them. And then if they choose one that they like, then that's when that collaboration starts, where we do those visits. And it's
That's
kind of
awesome.
what's needed for the student.
That's great. I think that's best practice. If you can bring the student there and spend, 2 or 3 hours
Mhm.
to get them used to going to the day program. Doesn't have to be, 10 times, but 3 or 4 times.
Mhm. We have Jessica Carter that has joined us. Welcome, Jessica. She shared in the chat that the Strive Tops program, that the students still in high school who also attend our program for half days. So they do the dual programming as well, with Strive Tops.
That's a great program.
Mhm.
So they're still in high school. Yeah, they have school in the morning, right? Or the afternoon, morning?
Sorry, yeah, the students at our program are still in high school, and we do offer shadow days like you're talking about. So currently we are offering like a lot of different shadow days for different districts. And the student will come with an ed tech or with their teacher, and they'll shadow for a session, which is half of a day, half of a school day essentially. And then we, kind of determine if it's a good fit. And then they potentially would come next year. And usually their first year, they will just come for one session. But we do have students who come also for a second year, and they would maybe most likely do a full day, so 2 sessions. And so they would still be enrolled in high school. We have had some opportunities also recently to visit Bayside, which is another Strive program with our students. That way, it's kind of a natural transition for the students from our program into another day program. If they're not really quite ready for something like Strive University, or if they're not even ready to necessarily just get a job or just to be at home, that type of program, Bayside, they would have to graduate from high school and then be an adult and, like an independent adult and not be in high school anymore. And then they could attend the Bayside program, which has a bunch of different scenarios right now. They used to only have like an offering where it was Monday through Friday. And then they have 2 different time slots. I think one is like from, I want to say like 8 to 1, and then the other one is from 1 to 5 during the day. But now they're also offering another program where students or participants can choose to do just 3 days a week. So they can do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then that would be like a 2-year commitment. But they're also very flexible about the word commitment.
That is good information. Thank you for sharing, Jessica.
Absolutely.
Mhm. I have a question to throw out to the team based on that information, right? This is a lot of information that we have just shared around these waivers and the understanding and the supports and the referrals, as Jessica had just detailed for us. Now, based on all this information, and I'm going to throw it in the chat for all our transition champions to chew on and think about. But how, and Vicky, if you wanted to jump in as well, but how should our IEP teams incorporate this information about these waivers into the transition planning meetings? How would you do that? If we could have, let me see who's with us today. Let me throw it at.
Well, how do they do it now?
Yeah, how do you do it now? And based on the information you received, how would you change your practice?
So if I can just chime in here, at Scarborough, at least the way I do it is as soon as students come in as freshmen, if I present all the possible options, transition options right up through graduation date or aging out dates. And we talk about those options, even though those options may change over time. I try to identify all the possible ones. Then as we get closer, we can narrow in on the ones that are more likely the best and appropriate option for that student and family.
Well thought through. How are you thinking around the transition assessments when it comes to that through the planning? Because it's planning out for the services as well, but they're just coming in. So then we have assessments that would support developing that IEP, but there's assessments as well that we'd want to share with our VR agencies. So how does your assessments inform your planning?
Well, it's a good question. So I do some of the assessments, not some of the more involved ones that our evaluators do that we need for ODEs, let's say. So those assessments are done with our psych professionals in the testing office. But certainly those are critical when it comes time to getting closer to, we want to make sure within that 2-year window. So we always keep that in mind. And so we make sure those are done. If they're going to expire before 2 years, we make sure we schedule those to be done prior to that so they have those ready to go. And other assessments, some are done with voc rehab, some of the interest inventories. Again, and most of the things I do is most on the interest inventory side, or maybe looking at career options. And then we have a bunch of others that, we can pick and choose from, but they all have their specific use for a specific situation. And just like the student, sometimes it's just finding the right one for that student that's going to be helpful and giving us some direction.
Absolutely. Well thought out. Is there, and I'm talking to everyone on the panel today, are there any exceptions to this rule? Because we know everything is individualized, right? So what happens if we can't reach our students? What happens, and because this is the struggle and the barriers most of our case managers have, right? When it comes to attendance that impact those assessments. How are we managing supporting attendance, whether it's because of, just health reasons or having to, there's, for example, I had a student who had really bad asthma, and so he had to do the oxygen machine quite often, and he'd miss a lot of days because of that. And that would impact the schedule that we placed to support those assessments, how are we thinking around supporting our students that needs that we need to address attendance as well? And this is not just throwing it at you, Jack, as I throwing it at I'm throwing it for all of us to discuss and how this impacts services and reaching out to our state agencies and our community providers, because it's a challenge.
I think that what you're describing is that would need to be put into the summary of performance, right? So if we're writing this golden ticket, you know, if they're out because of the need for the oxygen or whatever it is that you're describing, then that's well documented in the IEP under accommodations. And then so that's
Thank you.
amended in the summary of performance. It shouldn't affect them getting services or not.
Exactly. But we have to be mindful in our path, right? In being very constructive in the way that we share the attendance, because we don't want that information of attendance impeding opportunities, right? So in the way that we share it, we have to be mindful on how it is supported. When we say something in the PLAF, right? Am I pronouncing that correctly? PLAF. We have to support that in the accommodations, because we're looking at both when we're developing and reading for the information to be encapsulated on that summary of performance. Does that make any does that make any sense? Does anyone have questions or an additional way to address it other than the PLAF or the accommodation? Is that the only way that you can address it? So, one way, an additional way is making sure that we have detailed that in the independent living as well. So when we are talking about our transition goals, right, we're talking about the accommodations to support that, but we're also looking at how to address that in the independent living skills or goals. Now, I know that we often only address independent living skills when it comes to our students with IDD or ASD, but this could be any student as well that needs that support and understanding around attendance. So making sure that they understand and they are also able to speak to it would be a significant support when we are not there to advocate for them. So not only the accommodation, but the PLAFT, but making sure that it's addressed in the transition goals. Sometimes it can be framed within the academic and employment, but I think that in itself, in the independent living goals, would also add value. I am so sorry, Vicky.
Fine.
In doing so, I'm shushing.
No, that's fine. I think, you know, the role of a adult case manager isn't just about the waivers either. You know, there's a lot of things that arise in our work that has to do with just human beings in general, but you know, the social service system in general. Maine care, food stamps, social security, housing, psychiatry, transportation, just to name a few. Those things keep us hopping all day long. Motive Care is our transportation provider in this area. They have to have a copy of every person-centered plan, guardianship issues, probate court, legal issues over who owns the house. The sister just died, and the sister took care of this man in his 50s his whole life. Where's he going to live now? So some very complex things arise. Behavior management plans, restricting people's rights,
Mhm.
and taking away people's personal property, which is a violation of their rights, and involving attorneys from Disability Rights Maine. So it's not just about our waivers. It's about dignity and risk and the protection of those rights. And making sure that people are being treated humanely.
First and foremost.
Yeah. So, and you know, everybody's, you know, very, you know, we have to be working on our computers a lot. And there's the balance of working on computers and dealing with human beings. So you know, we have to be on the road, we have to be in our cars, we have to be at the group homes, and we have to make sure all the computer work is done, all the paperwork. So,
We have one more question. What is the wait list to access adult case managers services from Woodford?
oh,
Ooh.
That's a big one.
we can't keep up with the demand. So we're not even keeping a wait list because it's a bit of a revolving door of case managers. That's an unfortunate employment situation
Mhm.
because it's a hard job.
So in response to that, contact them early.
Yes,
Contact them consistently,
yes,
making sure that you are planning these meetings, sometimes even like 6 months to a year out, so that you are not trying to access the services when you need it. You're planning for it. So you are being proactive in securing these services. And it's not you, I meant including the family, and for the family, right? Because this is, you're creating the dream team around each student, right? That person-centered plan. So you securing all those services around that. So make sure that we are starting earlier, whether this is getting our assessments ready for that eligibility waiver, getting that information through, whether it's sending out that paperwork, those reminders, but mostly consistency in your contact with the agencies are one of the most important factors when it comes to access. Would you agree, Vicky?
I agree wholeheartedly.
And so therefore, everyone is going to get your email.
Mhm.
I'm going to share all your contact information as well. And
You can email me and ask me questions anytime you want.
there you go. So one more question. Can school professionals get students on waitlist for 21 and 29 without an ACM?
There's been some debate about that. I know that Whitney's been doing them. She's a transition case manager. I don't think every children's behavioral health home case management does that.
No, we're really fortunate to have Whitney on our transition team because she has kind of learned the role of an adult case manager and kind of is able to get consumers and their parents kind of started into that world. She also does a really good job at making referrals to adult case management agencies and hoping to get that in place. So she's kind of she kind of is in both worlds, children's and adults, but I also think that there's the kind of the computer work that Vicky mentioned and the paperwork, and with that is like the state's electronic health record, Evergreen, where we do all of this stuff. So, I think it's electronic health record for providers and not parents. And that's where all the PCP and all the paperwork kind of resides.
Mhm.
So I think
So-
having an adult case manager, once you have one, stick with them, stick with that agency, because they are hard to come by. But I would strongly recommend having that person on your team.
And especially when you have transition fairs, making sure that you are inviting your case management teams in as well to connect with parents. Or if they are unable to because like limited staffing, making sure that you secure information from these organizations to share with people, with your parents as well. So getting the team rally around we're going to hurry up and wait. I think that is where we are in the state of Maine right now, as far as services are concerned. Hurry up, complete the paperwork, submit for eligibility, and then the wait. But getting in our names, right? Getting in the names as quickly as possible so you can secure your spot in that wait list overall. The time is now 3:56. I want to make sure that I express my that I value every single minute of the day and your time in coming to the power hours for the additional information to secure the futures of our students, access meaningful post-secondary opportunities. If you have any further questions for Vicky or Rebecca, Vicky's email is in the chat. Rebecca is going to provide her email in the chat as well. Any other questions that you have in regards to these adult case management supports, please feel free to reach out to them directly as it relates to the IEP and supports within our community and family engagement. Please reach out to me directly. I am here to support you all. Thank you again for attending today's Power Hour. I will spend 5 or so minutes additional time here on this platform. If you have any other questions, I am available. Other than that, thank you so much for your time today, Rebecca and Vicky. We appreciate your expertise, and I'm sure many of our schools will be reaching out to you shortly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anytime. Have a great day.
Thanks.
And you. Thank you.